Before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to our channel Pause Verve. If this story touches your heart, please like the video and share it with others. Your support helps us continue bringing you more heartwarming stories. The wind howled through the Oregon pines, carrying a faint, desperate whimper that sliced through the late afternoon quiet. 10-year-old Lily Carter froze on the gravel path home from school, her heart pounding as she scanned the shadowed woods beyond the highway. Somewhere in that tangle of brambles and dusk, a creature needed help, a sound so raw it echoed the ache she'd carried since her father's death a year ago. This is the story of Lily, a girl scarred by fear and loss, who finds courage in the cries of a lost Border Collie puppy and its mother, their plight pulling her from grief's shadow into a heartwarming journey of trust and reunion. With a storm brewing and a sinister stranger lurking, Lily's choice to act will test her bravery, rekindle her mother's hope, and uncover a bond thought lost forever, proving that even the wildest hearts can find their way home. Lily's sneakers crunched against the gravel, her small frame hunched under the weight of her blue backpack, its straps frayed from daily use. The air was heavy, thick with the promise of rain, and the sky above the small town of Willow Creek churned with gray, clouds that seemed to mirror the turmoil inside her. At 10, Lily was no stranger to pain. A jagged scar on her left leg, hidden beneath her jeans, marked the dog bite from 4 years ago, a neighbor's hound that had turned a sunny picnic into a nightmare. Worse still was the invisible wound, the loss of her father, James, a forest ranger who vanished in a hiking accident on these very trails. His absence left a void in their modest farmhouse, where laughter had once echoed. Now Lily walked alone, her hazel eyes scanning the world with a caution that belied her age. The highway stretched to her right, a ribbon of asphalt cutting through. The forest, its hum of occasional traffic a reminder of the divide between town and wilderness. Willow Creek was the kind of place where everyone knew your name, but secrets hid in the woods, secrets like the one that now tugged at Lily's heart. The whimper came again, sharper this time, high-pitched and trembling. She stopped, gripping the straps of her backpack, her breath catching. It wasn't human, she knew that much, but it wasn't a coyote's howl or a bird's cry either. It was something smaller, something scared. Her first instinct was to run. Dogs, even the thought of them made her palms sweat, her leg throb with phantom pain. But this sound, it wasn't threatening. It was pleading. Lily edged toward the tree line, her sneakers sinking into the damp earth. The woods were dense here, brambles clawing at the ground like nature's barbed wire. Through the gloom she saw it, a Border Collie puppy no bigger than a loaf of bread, its black and white fur matted with mud. It was tangled in the brambles, one tiny paw caught, its dark eyes wide with terror. Each tug it gave only tightened the thorn's grip, and its whimpers grew more frantic. Lily's chest tightened. She wanted to look away, to pretend she hadn't seen it, but those eyes held her, full of a fear she understood too well. Across the highway a louder sound broke through, a deep, anxious bark. Lily's gaze snapped up, and there, pacing on the opposite shoulder, was a larger Border Collie. The mother, she realized, her coat a striking mix of black and white, her movements taut with desperation. The dog's eyes locked on the puppy, then flicked to Lily, as if weighing her intent. The highway between them was a dangerous barrier, cars speeding by with no regard for the drama unfolding. Lily's heart raced. She knew she should keep walking, get home before the storm hit, before her mother Claire worried. But the puppy's cries were a hook in her soul, pulling her toward a choice she wasn't sure she was brave enough to make. Claire, a librarian who'd grown quiet and cautious since James's death, would tell her to stay out of it. Leave. Wild things to the wild, she'd say, her voice soft but firm, as if afraid of breaking the fragile peace they'd built. Their home, a white clapboard house with a sagging porch, was a shrine to what they'd lost. James's ranger hat still hung by the door, his maps folded neatly in the study. Lily missed his stories of the forest, his gentle encouragement to face her fears. He'd have known what to do about this puppy. He'd have whistled, low and sure, and somehow made everything right. The puppy yelped again, a sound that shot through Lily like lightning. She dropped to her knees, ignoring the damp seeping through her jeans, and peered closer. The puppy's fur was patchy, one white paw stark against the black, like it had been dipped in paint. She called it Patch in her mind, a name that felt right, though she scolded herself for naming something she wasn't sure she could help. Her fingers twitched, wanting to reach out, but the memory of sharp teeth and pain held her back. What if it bit her? What if the mother charged across the road, mistaking her for a threat? A low rumble of thunder rolled in the distance, and the first raindrops speckled Lily's jacket. The storm was coming faster than she'd expected, the sky darkening like a bruise. She glanced at the mother dog, still pacing, her barks growing hoarse. Something about her was familiar. The tilt of her head, the way she moved with purpose. A memory flickered, too distant to grasp, of a dog that had once bounded through their yard, a gift from her father. But that dog, Star, had been lost years. Ergo, hadn't she? Lily shook her head, dismissing the thought. It was impossible, yet the possibility lingered, a spark of hope in the gathering dark. A car horn blared, startling her. The mother dog skittered back, nearly stepping into the path of an oncoming truck. Lily gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. The puppy whimpered, louder as if sensing its mother's danger. Time was slipping away. If she didn't act, the storm would trap the puppy, or worse, the highway would claim them both. Lily's fear of dogs warred with a deeper, fiercer instinct, one her father had nurtured to protect what was vulnerable. She stood, her limp barely noticeable in her determination, and took a step toward the brambles. Her heart pounded, but she couldn't turn back now. Not when those cries called to her, not when she felt her father's courage whispering in the wind. Lily Carter stood at the edge of the brambles, raindrops pattering on her hood, her breath shallow as the border. Collie puppy's whimpers pierced the thickening storm. The puppy, Patch, with his one white paw and terrified eyes, seemed to mirror the loneliness that had settled in Lily's heart since her father's death. Across the highway, the mother dog's desperate barks carried a grief Lily knew too well. Parents separated from their child, helpless against the world's indifference. Her fear of dogs screamed for her to run, but something stronger, a flicker of her father's courage, rooted her in place. This wasn't just a stranded animal, it was a chance to mend something broken, to prove she could be brave again. The rain fell harder now, turning the gravel path to mud, and Lily's sneakers slipped as she crouched closer to Patch. The puppy's struggles against the brambles had slowed, exhaustion setting in, but its eyes never left her. They were dark, liquid pools, full of a trust she didn't feel she deserved. "It's okay," she whispered, her voice trembling, more to herself than the puppy. Her scarred leg ached, a reminder of the attack 4 years ago, when teeth had torn through her skin and trust in dogs had shattered. Yet Patch's cries weren't aggressive, they were a plea, and they tugged at a memory of her father, James, kneeling beside her after that picnic, promising she'd find her courage again. Across the highway, the mother dog, Star, if Lily's impossible hope was true, paced with increasing agitation. Her barks were sharp, each one a knife to Lily's heart, echoing the nights she'd cried for her father after the rangers stopped searching. Star's black and white coat gleamed wetly in the fading light, her body taut as she darted toward the road, only to retreat when a car roared past. The highway was a cruel barrier, its traffic sparse but fast, each vehicle a threat to the reunion Lily could feel Star yearning for. She wondered if Star felt the same hollow ache she did, the kind that came from losing someone you couldn't reach. Lily's backpack felt heavier now, soaked through, but she didn't care. She glanced back toward town, where her mother, Claire, would be expecting her home soon. Claire had changed since James's death, her once warm smile replaced by a quiet reserve, as if grief had locked her heart away. She'd tell Lily to leave the puppy, to call animal control, to stay safe. Wild. "Things belong in the wild," she'd said once, when Lily pointed out a deer in their yard. But this wasn't wild, not entirely. Patch was too small, too vulnerable, and Star's desperation was too human. Lily couldn't walk away, not when she knew what it was to be left behind. She took a tentative step closer, the brambles snagging at her jacket. Patch whined, a sound so soft it nearly drowned in the rain, but it hit Lily like a shout. Her hands shook as she reached out, stopping short of the thorns. The memory of sharp teeth flashed, her screams, the blood, the panic, but she pushed it down. "I'm not going to hurt you," she said, her voice steadier now. She didn't know if Patch understood, but his ears twitched, and he stilled, watching her with a mix of fear and hope. It was enough to keep her there, to make her believe she could do this. The rumble of an approaching car broke her focus. She turned to see her mother's old station wagon slowing on the shoulder, Claire's worried face visible through the windshield. The car door opened and Claire stepped out, her coat flapping in the wind. "Lily, what are you doing out here?" Her voice was sharp with concern, but her eyes softened when she followed Lily's gaze to the puppy. "Oh, honey, you can't. Dogs are dangerous. Let's go home." "I can't, Mom," Lily said, surprising herself with the firmness in her voice. "It's stuck and its Mom's over there." She pointed across the highway, where Star had paused, her barks quieter now, as if sensing the new human presence. Claire's expression tightened, her own fear of the world's unpredictability warring with the sight before her. She'd always been cautious, even before James's accident, but his loss had made her build walls around them both. Yet something in Lily's determination seemed to crack that armor. Claire knelt beside her, rain soaking her dark hair. "Lily, it's not safe. You know why." Her hand hovered near Lily's scar, a gesture of protection, but Lily pulled away gently. "I know. But they're scared, Mum. Like I was." The words hung between them raw and true. Lily saw her mother's eyes glisten, not just from the rain. For a moment, they weren't just mother and daughter. They were two people who'd lost the same man, who understood the same pain. Claire looked at Patch, then at Star, and her shoulders sagged, as if the fight had gone out of her. "All right," Claire said softly, "but we're not touching them yet. We need a plan." She stood, scanning the highway, her librarian's mind already cataloguing risks and solutions. Lily felt a surge of hope. If her mother was with her, maybe they could save Patch and Star. Maybe they could save something of themselves, too. A low growl from Star drew their attention. The mother dog had edged closer to the road, her eyes locked on Patch, but her posture was tense, wary of the humans. Lily's heart skipped. What if Star didn't trust them? What if she ran into traffic? The storm's first lightning flashed, illuminating the scene in stark white, and thunder followed loud enough to make Patch yelp. Time was running out. Then another sound, a truck's engine, slowing as it approached. A man leaned out, his face shadowed under a cap. "You folks need help with that dog?" he called, his tone friendly but oddly eager. Claire's hand tightened on Lily's shoulder, her instincts flaring. Something about the man's smile didn't feel right, but Lily's focus stayed on Patch, whose whimpers had grown fainter, and Star, whose barks held a warning. The puppy's life, and maybe more, depended on what they did next. The rain lashed harder now, turning the highway's edge into a slick, muddy trap as Lily Carter crouched near the brambles, her eyes fixed on the trembling Border Collie puppy, Patch. The stranger's truck idled ominously nearby, its headlights cutting through the storm's gloom, while the mother dog, Star, barked with growing urgency from across the road. Lily's heart pounded, not just from fear of dogs, but from a stirring memory. Star's familiar tilt of head, the way she moved, like a ghost from a happier past. As the storm closed in and the stranger's intentions grew murkier, Lily's mind drifted to the scars that shaped her fear, and the father whose love for the wild might guide her now. This was more than a rescue. It was a chance to reclaim something lost, to bridge the chasm grief had carved in her family. 4 years ago, Willow Creek's annual picnic had been a sunlit affair, with checkered blankets spread across the town square and laughter filling the air. 6-year-old Lily, her hazel eyes bright with excitement, had been chasing a butterfly when the neighbor's hound, unchained and spooked by a child's squeal, lunged. The pain was immediate, teeth sinking into her leg, her screams drowning out the music. She remembered her father James sprinting to her, his ranger's strength lifting her from the chaos. The scar on her leg, a jagged crescent, was a permanent reminder, but the deeper wound was the fear that bloomed afterward. Dogs, once her delight, became monsters in her mind. She'd cross streets to avoid them, her heart racing at even a distant. Bark James, with his warm laugh and calloused hands, had been her anchor. A forest ranger who knew every trail in the Oregon woods, he'd taught Lily to love the wild, pointing out deer tracks, whistling to birds, promising she'd find her courage again. "Fear's just a shadow, Lilybug," he'd say, and shadows shrink when you face them. He'd given her Star for her 5th birthday, a Border Collie puppy with a coat like a starry night, hoping the gentle dog would ease her budding shyness. Star had been perfect, sleeping at Lily's feet, following James on patrols with an uncanny loyalty. But 2 years ago, during a wildfire that swept through the hills, Star vanished. The chaos of evacuation, the smoke choking the air, had separated them. Lily, recovering from a fall that left her with a limp, had cried for weeks believing Star dead. The loss was a prelude to a greater one. James's death came a year later, on a routine hike turned tragic. A sudden storm, a swollen river, he'd been swept away, his body never found. Lily was 9 then, and the world dimmed. Her mother, Claire, a librarian who'd once read adventure stories with a twinkle in her eye, withdrew into a shell of caution. Their farmhouse, once alive with James's maps and Star's playful yips, grew silent. Lily's limp from the fall during the fire became a constant companion, a physical echo of her grief. She stopped exploring the woods, stopped looking for constellations with her father's telescope. The butterfly hairpin Claire had given her, a gift from James, stayed pinned to her backpack, a talisman of what was gone. Now, as Lily stared at Patch, tangled and helpless, those memories surged. The puppy's white paw, stark against its black fur, was like Star's, a mark she'd loved as a child. And the mother dog, pacing across the highway, had Star's grace, her intelligent eyes. Could it be her? The thought was a spark in the eye. Dark, improbable, but impossible to ignore. Lily's fear of dogs, so deeply rooted, wavered against the pull of this possibility. Star had been her father's gift, a piece of him. If this was Star, saving her and Patch might be like saving a part of him too. Claire's voice cut through the rain. "Lily, we need to move. That man's still watching." She nodded toward the truck where the stranger, Mark he'd called himself, leaned against the hood, his smile too polished, his eyes too sharp. Claire's instincts, honed by years of reading people as well as books, screamed danger. She'd seen men like him in town, opportunists who preyed on trust. "He's not here to help," she whispered, her hand on Lily's shoulder, protective but trembling. Lily nodded, but her gaze stayed on Patch. The puppy's whimpers had weakened, its small body shivering in the cold. She thought of her father's stories, how he'd once freed a fawn from a hunter's snare, his hands steady, his voice calm. "Every creature deserves a chance," he'd told her. She wanted to be that brave, to make him proud. But the memory of the dog bite lingered, her leg throbbing as if warning her to retreat. Star's barks grew more frantic, and Lily saw her edge closer to the road, risking the traffic. The mother's love was fearless, and it shamed Lily's hesitation. "Mom, what if it's Star?" Lily's voice was barely audible over the storm, but Claire froze. She looked at the mother dog, her expression shifting from fear to something softer, pained. Star had been James's shadow, his partner in the woods. Claire remembered the night Star slept by the fire, the way James whistled a low, lilting tune, and Star came running. Losing her had been the first crack in their family's foundation. If this was Star, it was a miracle, a tether to James. But miracles came with risks. "I don't know, Lily," Claire admitted, her voice raw. "But we can't stay here. The storm's getting worse, and that man—" She trailed off, glancing at Mark, who'd stepped closer, his boots crunching on the gravel. His presence was a pressure, a threat cloaked in friendliness. Lily felt it too, a chill that wasn't just the rain. She didn't trust him, and neither did Star, whose barks had taken on a sharper edge, a warning to keep away. Lightning flashed, illuminating Patch's tiny form, and thunder shook the ground. Lily's heart raced. She couldn't leave Patch to the storm, or Star to the highway's danger. She thought of her father's whistle, the one he'd used for Star, a sound she could still mimic. If this was Star, maybe it would call her back. Maybe it would call them all back, to a time when fear didn't rule their lives. She met her mother's eyes, a silent plea, and Claire nodded, a spark of resolve breaking through her caution. They were in this together, But the stranger's shadow loomed and the clock was ticking. The storm's fury intensified, rain hammering the Oregon woods as Lily Carter knelt by the brambles, her hands trembling inches from the trapped border. Collie puppy, Patch. Across the highway, the mother dog, possibly Star, their long-lost pet, barked with a desperation that mirrored Lily's racing heart. The highway roared with passing cars, each one a threat to the mother's frantic pacing, while the stranger, Mark Ellis, watched from his idling truck, his false smile chilling in the storm's grey light. Lightning split the sky, and Patch's whimpers grew faint, his small body shivering in the thorn's grip. Time was slipping away, and with Mark's unsettling presence and the storm's escalating wrath, Lily and her mother, Claire, faced a crisis that tested their courage and stirred echoes of a past they thought was gone. This was no longer just about saving a puppy. It was about defying fear to reclaim a piece of their shattered family. Lily's breath hitched as she edged closer to Patch, the brambles snagging her jacket like skeletal fingers. The puppy's white paw, stark against his black fur, was tangled tightly, blood speckling the thorns where he'd struggled. His eyes, wide and pleading, locked onto hers, and for a moment the world narrowed to just the two of them. Lily, scarred by a dog's bite, and Patch helpless and trusting. Her fear surged, memories of sharp teeth and pain flashing, but she pushed them down. "Hold on," she whispered, her voice barely audible over the rain's roar. She didn't know if she was reassuring Patch or herself, but the words steadied her shaking hands. Across the highway, Star's barks grew hoarse, her body low and tense as she darted toward the road, only to retreat when a logging truck thundered past, its horn blaring. The asphalt glistened, slick and treacherous, and Lily's stomach twisted at the thought of Star running into traffic. "She's going to try to cross, Mom," Lily said, her voice tight with panic. Claire, kneeling beside her, nodded, her face pale but resolute. The storm was no longer a distant threat. It was here, wind whipping their hair, rain soaking their clothes. The highway's danger was matched only by the urgency of Patch's weakening cries. Claire glanced back at Mark's truck, its headlights cutting through the downpour like predatory eyes. He'd stepped closer now, his boots squelching in the mud, his voice carrying over the storm. "That pup's not going to last long in this weather," he called, his tone too smooth, too calculated. "I've got tools in my truck. Could get it out in no time." His offer sounded helpful, but his eyes lingered on Star, assessing her like a prize. Claire's grip tightened on Lily's shoulder, her librarian's intuition screaming that this man wasn't what he seemed. "We're handling it," she replied sharply, her voice cutting through the rain. "Stay back." Lily barely registered the exchange, her focus on Patch. She reached into her backpack, pulling out her school scissors, their blunt tips a poor tool but all she had. Her hands shook as she snipped at the brambles, careful not to nick Patch's paw. The puppy whimpered, flinching, and Lily's heart lurched. "I'm sorry," she murmured, her fear of dogs warring with a fierce need to free him. Each snip was agonizingly slow, the thorns resisting, and Patch's shivering grew worse. She glanced at Star, whose barks had turned to plaintive whines. As if she sensed her pup's fading strength, a sudden screech of tires snapped Lily's attention to the highway. A sedan swerved, narrowly missing Star, who'd ventured onto the asphalt. The driver leaned on the horn, and Star skittered back, her tail low. Lily's breath caught, her scissors slipping in her wet hands. "Mum, we have to get her over here," she cried, her voice cracking. Claire nodded, her eyes darting between the puppy, the mother, and Mark, who now stood just a few yards away, his hands in his pockets, watching with an intensity that chilled her. "We can't cross the road in this," Claire said, her voice steady despite the fear in her eyes. "But we can free the puppy and move him to safety. Then maybe she'll follow." She pulled her phone from her coat, fumbling with wet fingers to call animal control, but the signal was weak, the storm interfering. "Come on," she muttered, glancing at Mark, who hadn't moved but seemed poised like a hunter waiting for an opening. Lily returned to the brambles, her scissors snipping faster now, desperation overriding caution. Patch's paw came free with a final cut, and he tumbled forward, landing in the mud with a soft yelp. Lily froze, expecting him to bolt or snap, but he only looked up at her, shivering, his trust unbroken. She wanted to scoop him up, to warm him, but her fear held her back. Instead, she backed away, giving him space, her eyes flicking to Star, who'd stopped barking and was watching intently, as if understanding the moment's weight. But freedom brought new danger. Patch, disoriented and scared, staggered toward the highway, his tiny legs unsteady. "No!" Lily shouted, lunging forward, her limp slowing her. Claire grabbed her arm, pulling her back as a pickup truck roared around the bend, its headlights blinding. Patch froze in the middle of the road, a dark silhouette against the glare. Star's bark exploded, raw and frantic, and she bolted onto the asphalt, ignoring the oncoming vehicle. Claire acted on instinct, releasing Lily and sprinting toward the road, waving her arms to slow the truck. The driver slammed on the brakes, tires screeching, and the truck skidded to a stop inches from Patch. Star reached her pup, nosing him frantically, but the highway was no safe haven. Another car was coming, its lights looming through the rain. Lily's heart hammered. She couldn't lose them, not when they were so close to reunion. Mark's voice cut through the chaos. "Told you they're in trouble. Let me take 'em. Got a warm truck, a safe place." His words were laced with something darker, a greed Lily didn't understand but felt in her bones. Claire, panting from her sprint, shot him a glare. "Stay. Away from them," she snapped, her voice fierce despite the storm's roar. She turned to Lily, eyes blazing with a determination Lily hadn't seen since before her father's death. "We're not losing them, Lily. Not today." Lily nodded, her fear of dogs overshadowed by a surge of purpose. Patch and Star needed her, and she needed them, to prove she could be brave, to honor her father's belief in her. The storm raged, the highway roared, and Mark's shadow loomed, but Lily felt a spark of hope. If they could save Patch and Star, maybe they could save themselves too. The storm raged over Willow Creek, rain blurring the highway as Lily Carter stood frozen, watching the Border Collie puppy Patch huddle against his mother, Star, in the middle of the slick asphalt. The truck that had nearly hit them idled, its driver shouting through the downpour, while another car's headlights loomed in the distance. Star's protective stance, her black and white coat slick with rain, stirred a memory in Lily, a whistle her father James used to call their lost dog home. Mark Ellis, the stranger, with the calculating smile edged closer, his offer to help ringing hollow against Star's warning growls. With the storm worsening and danger closing in, Lily and her mother Claire had one chance to reunite mother and pup before the highway, or Mark's intentions tore them apart. This was their moment to bridge past and present, to summon courage from grief's ashes and bring Star back to them. Lily's heart pounded as she scanned the chaotic scene. Patch, shivering but unharmed, pressed against Star's flank, his white paw barely visible in the rain's curtain. Star's eyes darted between her pup and the approaching car, her body tense, ready to bolt. The highway was a death trap, and Lily knew they had seconds to act. "Mum, we have to get them off the road," she cried, her voice nearly lost in the storm's howl. Claire, soaked and panting from her sprint to stop the truck, nodded, her face set with a determination that reminded Lily of her father's calm in a crisis. "We can't grab them. They'll panic," Claire said, her eyes flicking to Mark, who now stood just a few feet away, his hands in his pockets, watching with unsettling patience. "We need to lure them to our side." She glanced at Lily, a spark of recognition in her eyes. "Your dad's whistle, do you remember it?" Lily's breath caught. The whistle, a low, lilting tune James had used to call Star from the woods, was etched in her memory. She'd mimicked it as a child, giggling when Star bounded to her. If this was Star, it might work. If it wasn't, they'd lose precious time. Lily nodded, her fear of dogs battling the hope surging within her. She raised her fingers to her lips, rain dripping from her hood, and tried to recall the exact notes. Two short, one long, rising, like a question. Her first attempt was weak, drowned by the wind, but Star's ears twitched, her head tilting in that achingly familiar way. Lily's heart leaped. She whistled again, stronger this time, the sound cutting through the storm. Star froze, her eyes locking onto Lily, a flicker of recognition in their depths. For a moment the highway, the rain, Mark's looming presence faded. There was only Lily and the dog who might be Star. "Come on, girl," Lily whispered, her voice trembling with hope. Star took a tentative step toward their side of the road, nudging Patch forward, but a car's horn blared, shattering the moment. Star flinched, retreating, and Patch stumbled, his tiny body swaying. Claire waved frantically at the oncoming car, slowing it, but the traffic wouldn't stop forever. "Lily, keep whistling," she urged, moving to block Mark's path as he stepped closer, his boots deliberate in the mud. Mark's voice slithered through the chaos. "You're gonna lose 'em both if you keep this up. Let me handle it. I've got a net, a crate. They'll be safe." His words were laced with a greed that made Lily's skin crawl. Star growled, low and menacing, her hackles rising as she sensed his threat. Claire's glare was icy. "Back off," she snapped, her voice a steel Lily rarely heard. "They're not yours." Mark's smile tightened, but he didn't retreat, his eyes flicking to Star and Patch with a hunger that spoke of profit, not care. Lily whistled again, her lips numb from the cold, her hands shaking. This time Star responded, her body low as she guided Patch across the highway, dodging a slowing car. Lily's heart soared. They were coming. But the storm had other plans. Lightning cracked, thunder booming so close it shook the ground. Patch yelped, bolting in panic, not toward Lily but along the highway's shoulder, his small form a blur in the rain. Star chased after him, her barks frantic, and Lily's hope plummeted. "No, Patch," she shouted, her limp slowing her as she ran after them. Claire grabbed her arm, pulling her back from the road. "Lily, stay here. It's too dangerous." But Lily's eyes were on Patch, who'd veered into the grass, Star close behind. They were moving away from the highway, but toward the woods, where the brambles and darkness could swallow them. Mark saw his chance, striding toward his truck, where Lily glimpsed a flash of metal, a net, maybe, or something worse. "He's going after them, Mom," Lily cried, her voice raw. Claire's face hardened and she pulled out her phone again, this time dialing the sheriff despite the weak signal. "We're not letting him take them," she said, her voice fierce with a mother's resolve. Lily's mind raced. The whistle had worked briefly, but Patch's panic had undone it. She thought of her father, how he'd calmed Star during thunderstorms, kneeling beside her, his voice steady. "She trusts you, Lily Bug," he'd said once, when Star licked her hand. If this was Star, she might trust them still. Lily tugged free of Claire's grip, ignoring her mother's protest, and ran toward the grassy shoulder where Star and Patch had disappeared. Her limp made each step a struggle, but she couldn't stop, not when Star's barks echoed her own longing for family. "Lily!" Claire called, chasing after her, but Lily was already at the edge of the woods, whistling again, the tune a lifeline. Star's barks paused, and through the rain Lily saw her silhouette, Patch at her side, both dogs hesitant but listening. "Come back, Star," Lily pleaded, her voice breaking. "We're here." Star took a step toward her, then another, Patch following, their trust fragile but growing. But behind them, Mark's truck rumbled closer, its headlights sweeping the woods. He wasn't giving up, and the storm wasn't either. Lily's courage held, but the danger was far from over. The Oregon storm roared, its rain a relentless curtain as Lily Carter stood at the edge of the woods, her whistle's lilting notes fading into the wind. The Border Collie puppy, Patch, and his mother Star hesitated in the shadowed underbrush, their eyes glinting with wary trust. Across the highway, Mark Ellis's truck crept closer, its headlights slicing through the downpour, his intentions as dark as the clouds above. Lily's mother, Claire, caught up, her face a mix of fear and fierce resolve, her phone pressed to her ear, pleading for the sheriff's help. The air crackled with tension, Star's low growl, Patch's faint whimpers, and the storm's thunder forming a chorus of urgency. This was no longer just a reunion, it was a standoff, a test of Lily's newfound courage against a man whose greed threatened to steal the dogs and the fragile hope they represented. Lily's heart thudded, her wet clothes clinging to her skin as she kept her eyes on Star and Patch. The mother dog's posture was rigid, her black and white coat slick, her growl a warning that vibrated through the rain-soaked air. Patch huddled close, his white paw muddy, his small body trembling, but safe for now. Lily's whistle had brought them this far, a bridge to a past where Star was family. But Mark's approach threatened to shatter that connection. His truck stopped at the highway's shoulder, and he stepped out, a net dangling from one hand, his smile gone, replaced by a cold determination. "Stay back, Lily," Claire whispered, her voice taut as she ended her call. "Sheriff's on, his way, but it'll take time." She stepped in front of her daughter, shielding her from Mark, her librarian's calm replaced by a mother's ferocity. Lily nodded, but didn't retreat, her limp forgotten in the surge of adrenaline. Star's growl deepened as Mark approached, his boots deliberate in the mud, the net swinging like a predator's claw. "Easy now," he called, his voice falsely soothing. "Those dogs are half wild, dangerous. I'm just going to keep everyone safe." "They're not dangerous," Lily shouted, her voice cutting through the storm, surprising even herself. Her fear of dogs so paralyzing moments ago was drowned by a fierce need to protect Star and Patch. She thought of her father, James, his steady hands freeing trapped animals, his belief that kindness could tame fear. "Their family," she added, softer but firm, her hazel eyes locked on Mark's. Star's ears twitched as if she understood, and she moved slightly forward, placing herself between Patch and the stranger. Mark's eyes narrowed, his facade slipping. "Family, huh? Purebred border collies like that? Worth a fortune to the right buyers." He took another step, the net raised, and Star's growl turned to a snarl, her teeth bared. Lily's stomach churned. She'd heard stories of dog fighting, rings of animals stolen for profit. Mark wasn't here to help. He saw Star and Patch as commodities, their bond a nuisance to his plans. Claire's hand tightened on Lily's shoulder, but she spoke to Mark, her voice steel. "Leave now, or you'll answer to the sheriff. We know what you're after." Mark chuckled, a sound devoid of warmth. "Sheriff's miles away, lady, and these woods, no one's watching." He gestured at the desolate highway, the storm cloaking them in isolation. But his confidence faltered as Star advanced, her snarl a primal warning, her body low and ready to spring. Patch whimpered, pressing against her, and Lily's heart ached. She couldn't let Mark take them, not when Star's trust was so fragile, not when they were so close to safety. Lily's mind raced, landing on her father's whistle again. It had called Star back once. Maybe it could calm her now, keep her from attacking and giving Mark an excuse to hurt her. She raised her fingers, whistling the tune, 2 short notes, 1 long rising. Star's snarl paused, her head tilting, her eyes flicking to Lily. The moment of distraction was enough. Claire seized the chance, stepping forward with her phone, raised, snapping a photo of Mark, the net, and his truck's license plate. "Evidence," she said coldly. "You're not invisible." Mark's face twisted, anger flashing as he realized his advantage was slipping. "So I think a picture's gonna stop me," he snapped, lunging towards Star with the net. Star reacted instantly, dodging with a grace that spoke of her wild years, her teeth snapping inches from Mark's arm. He stumbled back, cursing, and Lily screamed, "Star, no!" Her voice, raw with fear and love, cut through the storm. Remarkably, Star checked herself, retreating to Patch's side, her growl unwavering, but her attack halted, as if Lily's plea had reached her. Claire pulled. Lily close, her eyes never leaving Mark. "You heard her, back off." Her voice trembled, but her stance was unyielding. Lily clung to her, her heart pounding, but she felt a surge of pride. Her mother was fighting for them, just as she was. Star's restraint, her trust in Lily's voice, was a miracle, a sign that the dog who'd once loved them might still be there beneath the wild exterior. A distant siren wailed, faint but growing louder, and Mark's head snapped toward the sound. His confidence cracked, his eyes darting from the dogs to Claire's phone to the approaching lights. "This ain't over," he spat, backing toward his truck. "Those dogs are mine." He climbed in, the engine roaring as he sped off, his tail lights swallowed by the rain. Lily exhaled, her legs wobbling, but the danger wasn't gone. Mark's threat lingered, and Star and Patch were still exposed, the woods no safe haven in this storm. Claire knelt, meeting Lily's eyes. "You were so brave, sweetheart," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "Your dad would be proud." Lily nodded, tears mixing with rain, her gaze returning to Star and Patch. The mother dog nosed her pup, her body still tense, but she hadn't fled. She'd stayed, trusting Lily's whistle, Claire's protection. The siren grew louder, the sheriff's car nearing, but Lily knew their fight wasn't over. They had to get Star and Patch to safety, to a place where Mark couldn't reach them, where they could heal together. The storm's roar softened to a steady patter as Lily Carter stood at the edge of the Oregon woods, her heart still racing from the confrontation with Mark Ellis. The Border Collie puppy, Patch, nestled against his mother Star, their wet fur gleaming in the fading light. The sheriff's siren wailed closer, a promise of safety, but Mark's parting threat, "This ain't over," hung heavy in the air. Claire, Lily's mother, kept a protective arm around her, her phone clutched tightly, the photo of Mark's truck, a small victory against his menace. Star's intelligent eyes watched them, wary but not fleeing, a fragile trust forming in the storm's aftermath. With the highway still a danger and Mark's greed a looming shadow, Lily and Claire knew they had to bring Star and Patch to a safe haven, a place where the past could heal and their family could begin to mend. Lily's breath steadied as she met Star's gaze, the mother dog's tilt of head stirring memories of warm evenings with her father James, when Star bounded through their yard. "We can't leave them here, Mom," Lily said, her voice firm despite the chill seeping through her soaked jacket. Her fear of dogs, though still a whisper in her mind, was overshadowed by a fierce need to protect these two, to honor the bond she felt with Star. Patch's white paw, muddy but bright, seemed a beacon, a reminder of the puppy's vulnerability and her own courage. Claire nodded, her face softened by a resolve Lily hadn't seen since before James's death. "You're right. They need shelter, and we need to keep that man away." She glanced toward the highway, where the sheriff's car was now visible, its lights flashing through the rain. "Let's get them home, to the garage. It's warm and we can leave the door open so Star doesn't feel trapped." The plan was practical, a librarian's logic, but Lily saw something more in her mother's eyes, a spark of hope, a willingness to fight for something beyond their grief. The sheriff's car pulled up, and Deputy Harris, a burly man with a kind face, stepped out, his hat dripping. "Everything all right here?" he asked, his eyes scanning the woods where Mark's truck had vanished. Claire quickly explained, showing him the photo of Mark, the net and the license plate. Harris's expression darkened. "Sounds like Ellis. We've had reports of him sniffing around for valuable dogs, probably for fighting rings or breeders. I'll put out an alert." He looked at Star and Patch, still huddled in the grass, and softened. "You folks planning to take them in?" "Yes," Lily said before Claire could answer, her voice steady. "They're ours." She hesitated, then added, "I think the mom's our old dog, Star. She ran away years ago." Harris raised an eyebrow but nodded, jotting notes. "If she's yours, you've got every right to keep them. Just get them checked by a vet. Make sure they're healthy." He promised to patrol the area and left to pursue Mark's trail. Leaving Lily and Claire with the dogs and a plan, Lily knelt, keeping her distance from Star, whose ears flicked at every sound. "Come on, Star," she said softly, whistling her father's tune again, 2 short notes, 1 long. Star's head tilted, her body relaxing slightly, and Patch yipped, his curiosity outweighing his fear. Lily stood, backing toward Claire's, station wagon parked nearby. "We'll go slow," Claire said, opening the back door and spreading an old blanket across the seat. "They might follow if we take it easy." Lily whistled again, walking backward, her limp barely noticeable in her focus. Star hesitated, nosing Patch, then took a tentative step, then another, her maternal instinct overriding her wild caution. Patch trotted after her, his small legs unsteady but determined. Claire watched, her breath held as the dogs followed them to the car. Star paused at the open door, sniffing the blanket, her eyes darting to Lily. "It's okay," Lily whispered, her heart swelling. "So you're safe now." With a final glance at the woods, Star leaped into the back, Patch scrambling after her, and Claire gently closed the door, leaving it cracked for air. The drive to their farmhouse was quiet, the storm's rumble fading as the wipers cleared the rain. Lily twisted in her seat, watching Star and Patch, who lay close, Star's tongue flicking out to clean her pup's muddy fur. The sight stirred a warmth in Lily, a memory of her father's stories by the fire. Star at his feet. Claire caught her eye, a small smile breaking through her usual reserve. "You were incredible back there," she said softly. "Your dad would have been so proud." Lily's throat tightened, but she smiled back, feeling a bridge forming between them, built by this shared mission. Their farmhouse came into view, its white clapboard weathered but welcoming, the porch light a beacon in the dusk. Claire parked near the garage, a sturdy space with a side door they could leave open. "Let's make it cozy," she said, grabbing old towels and a blanket from the house. Lily helped, spreading them on the concrete floor, adding a bowl of water and some leftover chicken from the fridge. Star and Patch hesitated at the garage entrance. Star's ears alert, but Patch's nose twitched at the food scent and he ventured in, Star following cautiously. Lily watched from the doorway, her fear of dogs a distant hum against the sight of Patch nibbling chicken, Star settling. Beside him, her body a shield but her eyes less wary. "They're safe, Mom," Lily said, her voice thick with relief. Claire knelt beside her, wrapping an arm around her shoulders. "They are, thanks to you." She paused, then added, "And maybe thanks to your dad, too. He always said Star was special." The mention of James brought a pang, but it was softer now, laced with comfort. Inside the house, Lily changed into dry clothes, the butterfly hairpin from her backpack glinting in the lamplight. She thought of Mark's threat, of the sheriff's promise, and of Star's trust. The garage was a sanctuary for now, but questions lingered. Could Star ever be their dog again? Would Mark return? As she drifted to sleep, the sound of rain on the roof mingled with the memory of her father's whistle, and she knew this was only the beginning. The morning after the storm broke with a fragile calm, sunlight filtering through the Oregon pines, to cast dappled patterns on the Carter farmhouse. Lily Carter woke to the soft clink of dishes in the kitchen, her mother, Claire, already up, but her thoughts were with Star and Patch, safe in the garage. The Border Collie mother and her puppy had trusted them enough to stay, a small miracle that warmed Lily's heart despite the lingering shadow of Mark Ellis's threat. His words, "This ain't over," echoed in her mind, a reminder that their sanctuary was temporary. As Lily and Claire began to rebuild their bond with Star, a new danger emerged, tied to the wild pack Star had left behind. With her father's courage as her guide, Lily knew they had to protect not just Star and Patch, but the family still out there, vulnerable to a predator who wouldn't stop. Lily slipped out of bed, her limp less pronounced in the morning's quiet, and padded to the garage door. Peering through the small window, she saw Star curled around Patch, the puppy's white paw tucked under his body, his breathing steady in sleep. Star's eyes flicked open, meeting Lily's, and though her posture remained vigilant, there was a softness there, a hint of the dog who'd once slept at her father's feet. Lily's fear of dogs, once a constant weight, felt lighter, replaced by a tentative trust. She whispered, "Good morning, Star," and Star's ears twitched as if the name still held meaning. In the kitchen, Claire set out oatmeal, her face softer than it had been in months. "They're still here," Lily said, sliding into a chair, the butterfly hairpin glinting in her hair. Claire nodded, a small smile breaking through. "I checked earlier. Patch ate more chicken, and Star, she didn't growl when I refilled the water." The words were simple, but they carried hope, a sign that the walls between them and Star were thinning. Claire reached across the table, squeezing Lily's hand. "You brought them back to us, Lily. Your dad would have loved this." The mention of James stirred a familiar ache, but it was tempered by purpose. Lily thought of her father's ranger maps, still folded in his study, and the trails he'd marked where Star used to run. If Star had survived in the wild, she hadn't been alone. "Mom," Lily said hesitantly, "Star had other puppies, didn't she? They're still out there." Claire's smile faded, her librarian's mind catching the implication. "You think that man, Mark, knows about them?" Lily nodded, Mark's greedy eyes flashing in her memory. "He called them valuable. What if he's looking for the others?" Claire's expression tightened, but before she could respond, a knock at the door startled them. Deputy Harris stood on the porch, his hat in hand. "Morning, folks," he said, his tone serious. "Got some news." Inside, he explained that Mark's truck had been spotted near the edge of town, near the trails leading into the forest. "Locals are reporting a wild dog pack causing trouble. bothering livestock, scaring hikers. Sounds like someone's stirring up fear, and I'd bet it's Ellis. He looked at Lily and Claire. If your dog's part of that pack, they're at risk. Lily's heart sank. Star's other puppies, left in the wild, were vulnerable, half-tame, half-wild, easy targets for someone like Mark. She glanced at the garage where Star and Patch rested, unaware of the threat to their family. "We have to find them, Mom," she said, her voice urgent. "Before he does." Claire hesitated, her caution warring with the fire in Lily's eyes, a fire that reminded her of James. "It's dangerous, Lily. The woods are vast, and Mark's not working alone." But Lily's resolve was unshakable. Dad would have gone. He'd have saved them. Claire sighed, then nodded, a decision settling in her eyes. "All right, but we're not going alone." She turned to Harris. "Can you help us?" The deputy agreed to coordinate with the sheriff's office and a local animal rescue group, but warned that time was short. If Ellis is spreading rumors, he's building a case to trap those dogs, legally or not. After Harris left, Claire pulled James's maps from the study, spreading them on the kitchen table. Lily traced the trails with her finger, remembering her father's stories of Star's favorite spots, a clearing by the river, a den near the old oak. "She'd hide them somewhere safe," Lily said, her voice steady. "I know it." They packed supplies, blankets, food, a flashlight, and headed to the garage. Star lifted her head as they entered, Patch stirring beside her. Lily knelt, keeping her distance, and spoke softly. "We're going to find your babies, Star. Will you help us?" Star's ears perked, her eyes searching Lily's face, and for a moment Lily felt her father's presence, as if he were guiding them. Claire rigged a leash from an old rope, loose enough for Star to feel free, and to their surprise, Star allowed it, as if sensing their intent. Patch stayed close, his curiosity a contrast to his mother's caution. They drove to the trailhead, the forest dense and glistening from the storm. Star's nose twitched, her body alert as she led them deeper, Lily whistling her father's tune to keep her calm. The woods were quiet, too quiet, and Lily's skin prickled with the sense of being watched. Claire's hand rested on her shoulder, a steadying force, but her eyes scanned the trees, wary of Mark's return. Star paused at a clearing, her ears flicking, and a faint yip echoed from the underbrush. Lily's heart leaped. Another puppy? But before they could move, a rustle in the bushes froze them, and Star growled, low and fierce. Someone was out, there, and the threat was closer than they'd feared. The Oregon forest stood hushed, its damp air thick with the scent of pine and earth as Lily Carter gripped the loose rope tethered to Star, the Border Collie's growl rumbling low in her throat. Patch, the puppy with the white paw, pressed against Lily's leg, his small body tense at the rustle in the underbrush. Claire, her mother, scanned the clearing, her hand on Lily's shoulder, both of them alert to the unseen threat. Mark Ellis, or someone working with him, lurking in the shadows. The faint yip of another puppy echoed again, a beacon of hope that Star's remaining litter was near, hidden in a den somewhere in this wilderness. With the sheriff's patrol stretched thin, and Mark's rumors of a dangerous dog pack gaining traction, Lily and Claire faced a critical moment. They had to find and protect Star's puppies, securing a future where fear and greed could no longer touch them, and in doing so, heal the wounds of their own fractured family. Lily's heart raced, her fear of dogs a distant echo against the urgency of the moment. Star's ears flicked, her body poised as she sniffed the air, her maternal instinct guiding her toward the yip. "She knows where they are, Mom," Lily whispered, her hazel eyes bright with determination. Claire nodded, her librarian's caution, tempered by a resolve that mirrored her late husband, James. "Stay close," she murmured, pulling a flashlight from her pack as the forest's shadows deepened. The rustle came again, closer now, and Star's growl sharpened, her hackles rising. Lily tightened her grip on the rope, whistling her father's tune, 2 short notes, 1 long, to keep Star calm. Star tugged forward, leading them past the clearing toward a tangle of roots beneath an ancient oak, its gnarled branches forming a natural canopy. Lily's pulse quickened as she spotted a small opening in the earth, barely visible among the ferns. A den. Star's tail flicked, and she whined softly, her eyes fixed on the entrance. A tiny black and white face peeked out, followed by another, then a third, 3 puppies, Star's remaining litter, their eyes wide with curiosity and fear. Lily's breath caught, a surge of joy mixing with dread. They'd found them, but the danger wasn't over. Claire knelt, shining the flashlight into the den, revealing the puppies huddled together, their coats matted but unharmed. "They're okay," she said, her voice thick with relief. But before they could plan their next move, a twig snapped behind them and Star spun, her snarl fierce. A figure emerged from the bushes, not Mark, but a younger man, wiry and nervous, holding a catch-pole. "Easy now," he said, his voice unsteady. "Just here for the dogs. They're causing trouble, you know." His eyes darted, betraying his fear of Star's bared teeth. "He's with Mark," Lily said, her voice steady despite the knot in her stomach. Claire stood, placing herself between the man and the den, her flashlight trained on his face. "You're trespassing," she said coldly. "The sheriff's already looking for your boss. Leave now, or you'll regret it." The man hesitated, the catch-pole wavering, but Star's growl and the distant wail of a siren, Harris's patrol, Lily hoped, made him falter. He backed away, muttering curses, and vanished into the forest, leaving an eerie silence. "We need to move fast," Claire said, her eyes scanning the trees. "Mark won't give up easily," Lily nodded, her mind racing. The puppies were too young to trek far, and Star wouldn't leave them. She thought of the animal sanctuary on the edge of Willow Creek, a place her father had supported where injured wildlife and stray dogs found refuge. "The sanctuary, Mom," Lily said. "They'd be safe there, and Mark couldn't touch them." Claire's face lit with recognition. "You're right. Let's get them there." Using the blankets from their pack, Claire and Lily gently coaxed the 3 puppies from the den, their small bodies trembling but curious. Star watched anxiously, her trust in Lily evident as she allowed the humans to handle her young. Patch yipped, as if encouraging his siblings, and Lily's heart swelled at the sight of the family together. They wrapped the puppies in blankets, securing them in the car's back seat, while Star leaped in beside them, her presence calming the litter. The drive to the sanctuary was tense, Lily glancing at every passing vehicle, fearing Mark's black truck, but the road stayed clear. At the sanctuary, a sprawling property with fenced fields and cozy kennels, the director, Ms. Harper, greeted them warmly. "These must be the dogs Harris called about," she said, her eyes kind as she assessed Star and the puppies. "They'll be safe here. We've got security, and no one takes our animals without proper clearance." She led them to a spacious enclosure where Star and her puppies could stay together, free to roam or rest in a sheltered den. Lily watched as Star explored, her tail giving a tentative wag, Patch and his siblings tumbling after her in playful bounds. Claire spoke with Ms. Harper about veterinary care and legal protection, while Lily knelt by the fence, her fear of dogs now a faint memory. Star approached, her nose brushing Lily's hand, a gentle touch that sent a wave of warmth through her. "You're home now," Lily whispered, tears prickling her eyes. Patch bounded over, his white paw bright, and licked her fingers, his trust a gift she'd never expected. For the first time since her father's death, Lily felt whole, as if Star's return had stitched a piece of her heart back together. As they drove home, Claire reached for Lily's hand. "You did this, Lily," she said, her voice soft. "You brought them back just like your dad would have." Lily smiled, the butterfly hairpin catching the sunlight. The sanctuary was Star's new home, but it was also a promise of safety, of healing, of a future where fear didn't win. Mark's threat lingered, but with the sheriff on his trail and the sanctuary's protection, Lily felt ready to face whatever came next. Summer's golden light bathed Willow Creek, the Oregon forest alive with birdsong as Lily Carter, now 10.5, walked the path to the animal sanctuary, her steps lighter than they'd been in years. The scar on her leg, a reminder of a dog's bite, no longer throbbed with fear, and her limp, once a constant shadow, was barely noticeable. At her side bounded Patch, the Border Collie puppy with the white paw, his playful energy a mirror to the joy Lily had rediscovered. Star and her other puppies thrived at the sanctuary, safe from Mark Ellis's greed, their presence a bridge to the father Lily lost and the mother she'd found again. With each visit, Lily's courage grew, her fear of dogs replaced by a bond. that healed her family and honored James's legacy. This was the final chapter of their journey, a heartwarming transformation where love and trust triumphed over loss. Lily's blue backpack bounced as she walked, the butterfly hairpin glinting. In her hair, a gift from her father that now felt like a talisman of resilience. The sanctuary's gates came into view, and Patch yipped, racing ahead to where Star waited by the fence, her black and white coat gleaming, her eyes bright with recognition. The three other puppies, named Ember, Dusk, and Clover by the sanctuary staff, tumbled around her, their playful barks filling the air. Lily's heart swelled at the sight. Just months ago she'd trembled at the thought of dogs. Now they were her family, their trust a mirror to her own growth. Inside the sanctuary, Ms. Harper greeted her with a smile. "They've been waiting." "For you, Lily," she said, nodding toward Star, who tilted her head in that achingly familiar way. Lily knelt, offering a treat, and Star took it gently, her wildness softened by months of safety. Patch leaped into Lily's lap, licking her face, and she laughed, a sound that echoed the carefree girl she'd been before grief's weight. "You're getting too big for this," she teased, ruffling his fur, but she didn't push him away. His warmth, his trust, had dismantled her fear piece by piece. Claire joined her most weekends, her librarian's reserve replaced by a quiet passion for the sanctuary's mission. She'd started volunteering, organizing fundraisers to protect more animals, her grief for James channeled into purpose. Today she arrived with a box of donated books for the sanctuary's visitor center, her smile brighter than Lily had seen in years. "Look at you two," Claire said, watching Lily and Patch play fetch. "Your dad would have loved this." She set the box down, her hand brushing the ranger hat they'd hung in the sanctuary's office, a tribute to James's love for the wild. The threat of Mark Ellis had faded, though not without effort. Deputy Harris and the sheriff had tracked him down weeks after the forest confrontation, catching him with stolen dogs in a neighboring county. His rumors about a dangerous pack had fizzled under scrutiny, and the sanctuary's legal protections ensured Star and her puppies were untouchable. Lily still scanned the horizon sometimes, her vigilance a habit, but she no longer felt hunted. She'd faced Mark, faced her fear, and won. At the sanctuary, Lily had become a regular, helping with feeding, cleaning, and even training. Patch followed her everywhere, his joyful bounds a contrast to Star's reserved dignity. Star never fully embraced domestic life, preferring the sanctuary's open fields to a house, but she allowed Lily's touch, her nose brushing Lily's hand in moments of quiet trust. The other puppies, growing fast, were learning commands, their half-wild spirits tempered by the sanctuary's care. Ember, the boldest, had already been adopted by a local farmer, while Dusk and Clover stayed close to Star, their bond unbreakable. One afternoon, as Lily tossed a ball for Patch, Claire sat beside her on a bench, the summer breeze carrying the scent of wildflowers. "I was scared, you know," Claire admitted, her voice soft. "After your dad, I thought keeping you safe meant keeping you away from everything. Dogs, the woods, even me sometimes." She paused, her eyes on Star, who watched them from the shade. "But you showed me we could be brave again, Lily. You brought us back." Lily leaned against her mother, the words sinking deep. "I missed you, Mum," she said, her voice barely a whisper. "And Dad. But Star and Patch, so they're like him, aren't they? They make things better." Claire nodded, tears glistening, and pulled Lily close. The moment was a suture, stitching together the wounds of loss with love's quiet strengths. The sun dipped low. Lily walked to the enclosure's edge, whistling her father's tune. 2 short notes, 1 long. Star lifted her head, her eyes meeting Lily's, and Patch raced to her side, his white paw a bright spot against the grass. The other puppies yipped, joining the tableau, and Lily felt a profound rightness. She wasn't the scared girl who'd flinched at barks. She was Lily Carter, daughter of James, friend to Star and Patch, a girl who'd faced fear and found family. Back home, the farmhouse felt alive again. Claire hummed as she cooked, and Lily set the table, the ranger hat by the door, a reminder not of loss but of legacy. They talked of James, their stories no longer heavy with grief but warm with memory. Lily slept with a photo of her father, and Star on her nightstand, Patch's toy tucked under her pillow, a gift from the sanctuary. The stars outside her window, once distant, now seemed close, as if James were watching, smiling. At the sanctuary's next open house, Lily stood by Star's enclosure, explaining their story to visitors, her voice clear and proud. Patch sat at her feet, his tail wagging, and Claire beamed from the crowd, her hand on the butterfly hairpin she'd passed to Lily. Star watched, her wild heart at peace, her puppies safe. Lily's transformation was complete, not just a girl who'd overcome fear, but one who'd built a bridge to her past, her mother and a future where love was stronger than loss.